everyone, I hope you're all having a wonderful day and welcome to my channel. Today I wanted to talk about the single greatest MMORTS game that was ever created, and it is called Shattered Galaxy. In this video I'm going to go over what is Shattered Galaxy, what made it so great, and why I want this game to be revived. Before we get started, I wanted to say that this is a game that I was definitely not an expert at, as I was in elementary school when I first started playing this game, and I played it roughly 3 or 4 years after that, so there will be a lot of things that I don't know about this game, and I won't be trying to learn everything about this game as currently the game is dead, unfortunately. And since there's barely any players still playing this game, it was very hard to gather footage from this game, so I highly recommend checking out these two channels if you want to see more footage of the game. With that said, I wanted to get into what is Shattered Galaxy. Shattered Galaxy is a MMORTS game or massive multiplayer online real-time strategy game that was released in 2001 by KRU Interactive, or now known as Nexon Inc. So Shattered Galaxy is an MMORTS that has two core gameplay elements. One is the RPG aspect, where you take control of your commander and buy and sell, upgrade your units, and level up and spend attribute points to customize your playstyle with the units you chose. The attributes that you can gain are education, which will allow you to equip your units with stronger weapons to deal more damage. Clout allows your units to be more durable. Tactics allow you to field more units. And finally, mechanical aptitude to increase the weight limit of your units. You can only get a limited amount of attributes in total, 100 for free-to-play players and 120 for members only. And therefore, most players tend to pick a specific role and specialize in that specific role. So for example, if a player is to focus on education, their units will be focused on dealing damage, while clout players will mainly be for tanking, and tactics is a special attribute as it increases the amount of squads in your units by 1 for every 20 points that you allocate. So where your squad starts in a group of 6 and upwards to 12, generally 9 units in a squad was a bare minimum that was recommended to be effective in battle. Therefore, a lot of people got 60 points into tactics and then allocated their stat points accordingly based on whether they want to do damage or they wanted to tank. And then the remaining of the points will be used for mechanical aptitude to increase the amount of weight that your units can carry. Now, there were definitely players who focused on tactics to field more units. However, the game was balanced in a sense that if you get 12 units, they will generally be less tanky or deal less damage than anybody who is focusing entirely on education or clout, and that is how they tend to balance the game in that aspect. Next, I will explain the key structures in the hub world. There are two key structures in the hub area, one being the factory, which allows you to buy and sell units and repair all of your units that were damaged within the battles that you fought, and the other one is the facility, where they allow you to upgrade your units and gear up with weapons, CPU, stocks, engines, etc., and basically prepare you for the next battle. This is where the customization of your units basically come in. And then once your units are fully equipped and upgraded, then you will be going into the other element, which is the RTS element of the game. So the RTS element is where you take control of your single squad of units from anywhere between 1 to 12 units and participate in a territorial battle for control points with upwards to around 25 versus 25 players. And I say roughly because the lobby would say it is full, but the number of maximum players were always inconsistent. And then the battle will go on for 15 minutes. When you first create your character and then get into a game, you play a quick tutorial teaching you how to control your units and how to capture the main objective, which is called the point of contention, or POC for short. You simply place a ground unit on the POC with no other enemies on the spot and wait for the ring to fill, and it's roughly between a minute or two. And before you get into an actual game with real players, there is a cave system where you fight AI controlled aliens, where you can test out your new units that you purchased from the factory. Once you're ready for real combat, you can open up the map where you can see the territorial war between 3 factions, similar to games such as PlanetSide 2. Unlike PlanetSide 2, however, the faction that you choose does not ultimately affect anything in terms of gameplay. The units that you can gain are still the same, and ultimately it is which one is your favorite color, in my opinion. The faction's objective is to push the enemy's territory and gain war contributions, which is listed on the right of the map, and whoever has the most war contribution will be given uranium at the end of the cycle, which essentially is a resource that is used to obtain golden weapons, which is a slightly better version of the weapon that you can get. So that is a way to min-max your damage output. The way to initiate combat is to simply just walk into the enemy's territory, or if the enemy enters your team's territory, it will initiate combat and then enter the RTS element of the game. So these are the basic aspects of the game, and now I want to get into what made the game so great. So there's a lot of aspects that Shattered Galaxy does great, but one of the best features is that it took a single element of an RTS game, the battles, and simplified the gameplay to allow a wider range of players to enjoy. In a typical RTS game such as Age of Empires or StarCraft 2, there are many things that a player must manage, such as base building, resource management, unit composition, and actual battling, where it can be very intimidating to learn and play the game. In Shattered Galaxy, in the RTS element of the game, all you have to do is manage a single squad of units and focus on the specific role in your team. This is where I believe the game shines the most, which is the unit variety. Each player can have up to 48 units in total, and field a maximum of 6 to 12 units depending on your tactics attribute. When your current squad dies or retreat, if you deem that your units are no longer combat effective, you can select another squad to reinforce with. So for me, I had a maximum of 9 units in each squad, therefore I had 5 different squads of units, and I purchased 3 additional utility units to cap out the unit limit. So for those squads, you are given 4 different categories of units to select from. One being the infantry, basically foot soldiers, the mobiles, or vehicles or mechanical units, aviation or aircrafts, and lastly organic, which are native alien units. There are 16 infantry, 16 mobile, 11 aviation, and 8 organics units for a grand total of 51 units to pick from, each having their own playstyle where players should be able to find a unit that they enjoy most. And generally, every unit in this game was viable, except for maybe, I believe, 4 units in my opinion. My problem was more that there were so many units that were fun to play or very situational units that I wanted to bring, and I wanted to incorporate it into my army, but I did not have enough space. I do want to go over each and individual unit, however, since there are 51 different units, I won't be able to cover them all in one video, so I'll just cover some of my favorites or the most feared or some of the unique units. The first unit I wanted to cover are the Hawks, one of the most popular air-to-air fighters. They have very fast movement speed with high damage. They're perfect for harassing, but due to their lack of durability, you can lose units very fast to small mistakes or flying into anti-air mines. Next, I wanted to cover one of my favorite units, which are the Condors, which are large battlecruiser-esque air units, and they can deal heavy damage and are very durable, and they also have special laser beams that can destroy enemy air units if they are not reacted properly. The downside is they are very slow and have a very low rate of fire, but they can be very excellent buffers to your air force, and with their high durability they can tank through anti-air mines, or they can run mine detection on them as well. The one unit that I feared the most were the Phoenixes, which are air-to-air flamethrower units that can wipe out your squad if they are not spread out properly. Some players had extremely fast Phoenixes, so by the time you saw them, you were already dead. And the other one that I feared was the Revenants, or the other alien unit that had the ground pound ability. If you were a slow ground moving unit and you saw them, you know what's coming. Like I quickly mentioned, they have a special ground pound ability, which they are stationary while they are attacking. However, they do massive AoE damage, and they are able to decimate through you. And I love that they have such a loud sound that they make and shakes the screen. Lastly, I love the apparitions and the methods because they look cool. But jokes aside, snipers were really fun to play and generally can get great damage out, as they have cloak, camouflage, and long range, where cloak is basically where you units can still attack while invisible. However, the enemy can target you if they hover their cursor over you, and camouflage is where the enemy cannot target you and they cannot see you if they hover the cursor over you. However, you cannot attack. The enemy can detect you if they have any sort of detection or if they have any AoE of some sort. One key thing to note is that artillery cannot attack cloak unit unless they are revealed, and that is why the snipers can be hard to detect. People can generally tell where they are gonna be shooting from since they shoot the enemy closest to them, revealing the direction in which they are shooting from, and it gives players a way to figure out their general location even if they have all those kind of stealth capabilities. Last, I wanted to talk about the special or the unique units, which are the sappers, healers, scanners, and artillery units. These are unique as in a lot of them don't have any basic attacks of any sort, Artillery units have a set range that is based off of their weapon's choice. It shows you what range you have, and then it is a set distance that they can attack. So positioning is a very key role for an artillery player. Next are the sappers. Sappers are basically just units that lay down mines. There's one for the air and one for the ground. They can slow down enemy pushes or deal heavy damage to the enemy, and it does take a little bit of time to set down all their mines, and they can get picked off easily from the air or the ground, depending on if you're an air or ground sapper. And the mines can be cleared out through mine detectors. However, it does still force out a special unit with a detection, and they can be less than ideal for the current situation that they need, which creates that interesting dynamic to the gameplay. Most of the time though, they generally have a high durable unit to tank all of the mines, which in itself is still dealing significant amount of damage and forcing that tank to be a lot weaker than they have to be. Next are the healers and the medics and the scanners. Healers and the medics are pretty much self-explanatory. They just heal your units. There's also a supply depot unit, which gives your teammates energy should they need it, as you can run energy supply for your units that does not self-regenerate, so they can be very helpful for your team if they don't have any self-regeneration. Lastly are the scanners. Scanners are arguably one of the most important units to have on your team, as they can scan the minimap on enemy location, and no unit is immune to the scan. Therefore, the information is 100% accurate. However, the scan only shows you where they are and not what units they are, or if they're air units or if they're ground units, so they don't have that perfect information. However, knowing where the enemies are is very helpful, and high skilled players can generally look at the unit and where they are positioned and figure out what units they probably are going to be. In addition, they also can scan where enemy nukes are going to be hitting, therefore your team can have plenty of time to get away from that location. And they also have a jamming capability, which is also very helpful, as it jams enemy minimap, so they cannot see what is going on the minimap, and they also cannot see outside of their own squad's vision. Therefore, they cannot see from their team's vision. However, if you are being jammed and if your team has a scanner, they can still reveal where the enemies are on the minimap. However, it will still be a black staticky visual, and you still do not have team vision. The unit variety in this game was amazing, as there were no single unit that could do everything. There were units that had inherent disadvantages and advantages, and you never saw a single unit being spammed by every single player. There were certainly more niche units such as the Virus or Revenant, and far more popular units such as Hawks or the Oizis. But niche units still had a special role that they can fill, such as Revenant being able to crush through heavily armored defense units, blocking the POC or ramps, and popular units such as the Hawks are countered by ground-to-air attacking units such as the Manticores. Mostly every unit fills a purpose and always changing the dynamic of the battle, which makes every battle feel unique. And as no single unit can do everything, you would generally build your army around with a variety of units that can achieve multiple purposes, or at least that's what I did. For my army composition, I have area denial units, fast harassing units, and durable units should we need additional buffer for the front line. And this is where I get into the most enjoyable part of this game, which is the sense of cooperative play. The game really makes you feel like you're partaking in an actual battle, where you rely and cooperate with your team to cover each other's weaknesses, and overall makes you and all of your team feel like they're contributing to the team regardless of what they're doing. Even if you are not pushing or capturing the POC and going around the map for kills, you could unintentionally be helping the team by killing artillery units that's bombarding your team, killing specters that could be nuking your team, killing enemy air or ground units that could have been harassing your team, or killing enemy radar units, cutting off key critical information from the enemy team. Even though the game is more of a simplistic version of an RTS game that we are used to today, there are still many things that makes you think tactically as you would in another RTS game, such as what unit should I bring in? You might ask yourself, does the enemy have air superiority? If yes, you might want to bring anti-air units, or if your team is lacking strong heavy frontline units, you might want to think about bringing heavily armored units. If the enemy has artillery or jammer units, you might want to bring fast moving units that can easily eliminate critical targets. And once your units are on the field, you think about many of the other dynamics, such as what engagements can I take? Ideally, you want to take engagements where you take minimal damage as possible, fighting enemies that cannot fire back at you. But plans change, shit happens, and then you have to adapt, getting out of fights that you cannot take, maneuvering around with your teammates so they can cover your retreat, and then taking on engagements that is favorable for you. And overall, learning the different matchups, leveling your units, makes you feel like you are constantly improving at the game, and the game can be very rewarding for skilled players. For example, In many of the games that I've played, I've seen very skilled Hawk players, which are very fast air units that is able to equip long-range lasers. What they would do is they would just simply kite away and take engagements and come out with not even a single casualty. However, at the same time, I've seen the same players get decimated by anti-air artillery units such as the ballista or anti-air mines or manticores shooting them from the ground. And that's why even if this game may be a more simplistic version of an RTS, there's still elements in the game where it can be very enjoyable for hardcore RTS players. And at the same time, since there's a lot less to manage and with more of a rock paper scissors-esque combat style, the game can be more accessible for newer players to the RTS genre. And finally, I just wanted to talk about the last thing that I loved, which was the music. The soundtrack for this game is actually really good, surprisingly. The battle music is hype, and even though they only had about roughly 8 songs in the soundtrack, after 3 years of playing this game continuously, I never once muted the music because I never got tired of it. The city music gives us a nice vibe as well, and I just wanted to mention it before I move on. All the songs that I used in this video's background is the OST from this game. If you like it, you should check it out. It brings back such great memories for me, and I hope it does for people who actually have played this game as well. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about is why I want this game to be revived. It's not only because I played this game continuously for probably about 3 to 4 years and feel nostalgic about this game. I'm not looking at this through nostalgia goggles. I genuinely do believe throughout its flaws, it can be a very successful game in this current market. There were certainly some problems that I had against this game that really made me want to quit. And the last straw was basically the servers just not working and the immense amount of lag due to just basically no players playing the game anymore, and then probably just the servers going down. I genuinely felt incredibly sad when I tried to revisit Shattered Galaxy, getting into a game and just the game being extremely laggy and the chat going, well, I guess it's time to move on. Rest in peace, Shattered Galaxy. I was devastated, but I definitely felt the same exact way. The game was unplayable and I had to move on. But other than that, obviously, if with a new game, server issues won't hopefully not be an issue. I mean, there's definitely some games that has that, but the more in terms of the core gameplay aspect, there was some issues, but I feel like it can be solved. And other than that, there wasn't really a whole lot wrong with this game. There were 2 main problems for me that really made me want to quit this game, which was the progression halt. Basically, you can reach a certain level with your units. However, there is a limit to how much you can level without a membership. And the problem is, in the website, they didn't really tell you that getting a membership will increase the level limit of your units. I just didn't know. Since I was young, I didn't really bother to look that up either, and I didn't have money to get membership, so I couldn't even do it anyways. So I just felt like I hit a hard wall with progression, and at that point there was really no point in playing because my units weren't leveling up, and there was no way for me to catch up to the top players without paying. And they can simply fix that problem with just explaining what's included in the premium membership. However, obviously I don't think a membership system would work nowadays. Obviously I feel like the best way to monetize would be just through skins or visual effects. For example, like a flaming footprint effect, or maybe like a butterfly. It doesn't really matter. There's a lot you can do with like effects, or jet effects for your air units, something like that, or just customizable skins for your units. That doesn't change too much about them. Other than that, the second problem was unit level was based on each individual unit. So what happened was that when you purchase a unit and level them up and gear them up, each unit had a level, and then if you sold them, that progression that you gained on that unit is gone forever. So I think you could definitely overcome this by having it so that the level is cohesive. So basically, whenever you level up a unit to, let's say 30, if you sell that unit, that overall unit is going to be level 30. It's going to be saved, and you can purchase a new unit and try them out, level them up, and progress with them. But should you want to come back to that unit when you purchase them, that unit should be level 30 where you left off. And I think that was just there because it was a very old game. Like I said, it came out in 2001. So I definitely understand that they didn't really think about this. and it would obviously make sense if they were to update that in the newest game. But other than those two issues, I really don't think there was anything that I felt like was inherently wrong with the game. Now that I have discussed the strength and weakness of Shattered Galaxy, I wanted to compare it to the popular RTS games as of now and explain why I believe that it would do better than the current games that is available. The current RTS games that are readily available now are games such as StarCraft and Age of Empires, and as I've mentioned already, there are way too many things that you have to manage in that game. For example, in StarCraft, you need to know expansion timings, build orders, getting appropriate tech, and getting a unit composition. In addition, you have to learn when and how to scout, understand what you just scouted, and adapt to what you saw, and get required buildings or units accordingly to what you have saw, and constantly producing workers and units and make sure you don't get supply blocked. And if I were to play with somebody who's never played RTS before, I would have a significant advantage because I am familiar with how a RTS game is structured, and I can figure out, oh, this building produces units, this building produces tech, and I have that mental conscience in me saying I have to constantly produce workers if I want to keep ahead in economy. However, a new player will probably just not even know what I just said and have to first go over what is a barracks? Or what is a supply cap? How do I get workers? What do workers do? There's just so many things that you just don't understand, and there's only so much that the tutorial actually teaches you. However, since there's way too much to teach, I generally don't even bother. I never recommend RTS games to any of my friends just because it's gonna take way too much time, and that time is probably time that they're not gonna enjoy the game. In addition, most of the multiplayer aspects of an RTS game is gonna be competitive. So you're gonna be playing against real players or maybe just an AI controlled player, and you're not even gonna be able to play through the story with your friends, which I think it just generally sucks. And I generally play strategy games for the campaign more than the actual multiplayer, because the multiplayer can be extremely frustrating. And what really deters me from the multiplayer is actually watching the professional players play, because it feels like I'll never be able to even be remotely close to that level of play. And I really do feel like a lot of people share that kind of mentality, because there's really no major RTS games that has a massive multiplayer base. StarCraft 2 is the only one, and that game has been out for years and years. And I feel like a lot of people don't even move on from StarCraft 2 because the other scenes aren't that big, and the reason why they're not that big is because it's gonna take so long to learn a completely different RTS. So I feel like Shattered Galaxy will be a lot more popular because newer players have a lot less to manage, and players who wants to get their friends to play RTS games, there's not really a whole much that they need to teach them. All they have to do is teach them what their units do and who they should focus on targeting. There are 51 different units that you have to kind of figure out what they do exactly. However, I mean, considering how League of Legends is so popular with over 100 different champions, I think people can generally manage 51 different units. And then secondly, I feel like hardcore RTS fans can enjoy the game, like I mentioned, because there's still RTS elements into the game, and it's a lot more casual play. And if you're ever tired of playing very high competitive StarCraft or whatever, you can just relax and kind of just sit back and enjoy a little bit of a more casual RTS game. In addition, as each match is only about 15 minutes, it's a lot more digestible for every player. And it's a game where you can leave whenever you feel like. Whenever you're out of units, you could just retreat and then leave the battle. If you got somewhere to go, you could just hop on out, and the lobby will open for whoever wants to enter next. And then, as it's a very highly team-oriented game, you can have a nice community interaction, and maybe perhaps even they add a guild system. It might even attract a lot of streamers as well, as they can probably set up their own guilds and set up a little guild wars between them and rival streamers as well. Or if you just want to join a nice community and then join a guild, they might just set up a nice little fun guild activity as well. And I feel like that could be very successful by creating a warm community in that game. Also, if I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure that this Shattered Galaxy community was actually very nice. I never seen anybody talk shit in the games, because Like I said, generally, whatever you're doing is contributing to the team. So unless you're doing something like AFKing or just trolling by blocking the path for your team, then they'll probably be upset with you. However, like I've had one interaction where somebody just told me, "Hey, could you like switch to a ground unit as we have like a good air coverage?" I feel like everybody was generally polite, and I never had any negative interactions with other people. So that's why I believe Shattered Galaxy will work well because of its short game modes, with its lower barrier to entry, and since there's no real squad cap limit, it is a 25 versus 25. I think it would be pretty easy to play with all of your friends. Because I always had an issue where, like, maybe you have a friend group of 5 or 6. If they're all on at the same time, it's hard to find a game that we can all play together, because a lot of the games will be capped at a squad limit. For example, Apex Legends of 3, Warzones of 4, League of Legends of 5, and etc. etc. Not that I'm saying any of my friends would play Shattered Galaxy, but it is nice to have that option. So I do feel like Shattered Galaxy is a game that you can generally play with like a larger group of friends. And if you have even, let's say, 25 friends, you can initiate a battle all on your own, and then you can be a whole assault squad with just you and your homies. Lastly, I do want to clarify, I don't mind if this game is revived with a different IP, so long as the core gameplay is very similar to Shattered Galaxy. I feel that it would be interesting to see a game like Shattered Galaxy, but with maybe even an Age of Empires IP, or for example, a Warhammer 40k IP. I think that would be sick. So anyways, I really do hope that Shattered Galaxy gets revived some way or another within the future, and it is just so sad to see that after 20 years, there is still no game that compares to Shattered Galaxy. And I just wanted to say, rest in peace, Shattered Galaxy. You were my childhood, and I truly loved every minute of playing this game. For those who are still here, thank you so much for watching till the very end of this very long episode. I truly appreciate it. And if you have played Shattered Galaxy before, let me know of your favorite units or moments. I just wanted to share my favorite units were the Apparition Snipers, and loved the grueling battle for the center. For those of you who don't know, the center of the overworld map has a forward factory, allowing players to repair and head to the next battle without returning all the way to base. And the battle map had one POC in the center, where if the attacker capped it, it was game over. Defenders had to hold it for 15 minutes, and the defenders' units would spawn where their commanders were on the map before the game started, and when they reinforced, their units would spawn at the portal opposite to the attackers. The map is very symmetrical, with many choke points, making it very hard to capture the center, but it would always have the largest battles, and the constant back and forth is super fun, and winning an attacking battle is very rewarding, as it is for the most part your team is behind and the defenders are constantly repelling your team's assault. While defending it was fun of its own, because there's still very clutch defenses. The constant back and forth is also still there. You're trying to reinforce your teammates that are struggling to hold off against their big army, and it's just so much fun. And I think it was such a great dynamic that they had for the center. Because it was such a key location, you just knew even if you won that one defense, they're gonna come back, and they're gonna come back strong. And at the same time, you still have to think about, okay, so now we won. Do we push out towards the other factions? But then since it's in the center, it can always be attacked by the third faction, and it's so interesting, and I absolutely love this game. For those who have never heard of Shattered Galaxy before, thank you so much for tuning in. I can't really fathom that that anybody watching this till the end never played Shattered Galaxy before, but if you thought this game was interesting, if you could let me know your knowledge and experience with RTS games, and if you would ever be interested in a game like this. I'm curious to know if a game like this would be appealing for both high-level RTS players or new RTS players. And that'll be all for me. Thank you so much once again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.